So let's get to the anomalies, because this is the part where, the debate, the controversy right now is, how old is this thing? Because the image or the cloth itself or the image on the cloth would have to be first century to be Jesus' burial shroud. But there are those who say, no, this is a 13th century, 14th century forgery that's made to look like it, as you alluded to earlier. So you could basically shill and spend some money, get some money off of this thing, claiming it's authentic, but it's not. Your contention right now is that there are some indications, or there are actually some actual verifiable anomalies on the shroud, which would sort of respond to that. So give us some of those anomalies. What are the anomalies on the shroud that would suggest that this is not a forgery of the 13th, 14th century?
Sure. Well, let's start with some of the basics. There are hundreds of burial garments in existence from way back in history. I mean, just a moment's thought. Mummy cloths predate Jesus. So we have cloth going way back. And while you can find burial cloths with blood stains and decomposition stains, you don't find burial cloths. You don't open them up and go, oh my gosh, there's a body image on this. You don't find body images. All right, so that's one starting point. Okay, then what about the body image? There are several very important anomalies. The image on the shroud is non-directional. Now, in one of our two books on the shroud, Ken Stevenson and I have a photograph of non-directionality. And when you look at it, it doesn't look like much. It looks like someone took the shade off of their favorite lamp in the living room and photographed the light coming out in all directions at once from the light bulb. That's non-directionality. Whatever created the image on the shroud didn't go left, right, left, right, left, right. Then the person gets tired coloring or painting. They go up and down, up and down, up and down. It happened like taking that lampshade off and having it look like, boom, it's on the cloth at once. That's a real oddity. Now, I'm going to move up the list of the very difficult things to explain. Non-directionality is a little bit of an issue. There are bigger issues. Another one is the shroud image is superficial. That means if you take a thread, think about a thread and how wide it is. Well, it's not wide. If you cut it, can you see the side of it? Yeah, probably not. But what goes into a thread? Well, in a thread on the shroud, there could be 200 fibrils that make up that thread. But when the image came on the cloth, it is on the top fibril, basically. It's on the top fibril. It doesn't turn it over, and there's no image on the back. No image on the back of the thread. So whatever created the image is superficial. It had to be on the top. So that means, besides just the empirical fact that there's no paint, dye, powder, or any foreign substance on the shroud that could create the image, the problem is all those applications, physically speaking, in physics, it would sink down into the cloth. You're either going to have a contact image like blood. The blood on the shroud is a contact image. It was up against the blood of the man in the shroud, and it soaked through the cloth. But the image area sets on the top fibrils of each thread. That's very difficult to explain in physical terms. Number three, we're moving up, is up until recently, this is the most important, the hardest thing to explain. Shroud image is three-dimensional. Now, we talk about three-dimensional photography today, but I understand it's not really what it is. But when the Air Force Academy fellows, my co-author Ken Stevenson was in a carpool with three of the best-known shroud researchers. They had a computer at that time. It was called a VP8 image analyzer, and it analyzed Voyager-type space shots to the surface of the whatever, Mercury, Mars. It would measure distance, and distance is encoded in the photographs. And so when they put other photographs through, they were ugly. I mean, the nose sunk into the face, the eyes bulged out. They were not to scale. But when they put the image, the shroud face photograph into the VP8 analyzer, there's a lot of famous photos out there where you could immediately see the contours of this person's face. And 3D, you go, okay, well, that's crazy, but what does it mean? Well, it means that whatever left the mark on the cloth had to go across distance that was not of a few centimeters, that were not touching the body. So if the man's lying on his back and his hands are crossed in front of him, and the left knee, by the way, has popped back up in a state of rigor mortis. The body's in a state of rigor mortis. I tell people it's kind of hard to fake. Say I'm not dead. I'm just standing here real stiff. The left knee popped back up. So here's some examples. The cloth would touch the forehead and the chin, but not the cheeks and the ears. The cloth would touch the chest, but not the rib cage. And here's the big one. The shroud would drape over the left knee, which was raised, but not the right knee, which was down flat. And yet we have the equal image represented so equally. Now here's a math problem for you. If a man who weighs about 180 pounds, which is about how heavy the man was in the shroud, about 5'10", 180 pounds, if he's lying on a cloth, but the cloth on top of him is just sitting on top of him, just sitting lightly across the top of his dead body, he's not moving. If he rolls off that cloth, if he's really alive, and he rolls off that cloth, which image is going to be darker? The one on which he was laying, i.e. his shoulders back all the way down to the feet, or would the image on the top be darker, covering the face and the chest and the hands and so on? What do you think?
Well, obviously the back, if he's laying on it.
Because he lay 180 pounds.
Yeah.
Well, get this. The image is equally dense on both locations. And these are just real strange scientific things. So 3D says what made that image went from the rib cage, the sides of the cheeks, the right leg, which is below. It went through space onto the cloth and put a mark on the cloth, even though it was not touching the cloth, and they were different centimeters away from the actual cloth. So 3D is real hard to understand. But the craziest one, and not everybody's sold on this one, but the one that's got a lot of attention in the last few years, is that underneath the man's chin, right across here, the image in the shroud, you can see very clearly what appear to be teeth and roots of the teeth. And it's not because somebody opened them up and there's a big cut there and you can see the teeth. He's not cut here. And one of the few places he's not cut. But he's not cut here, but you can see the teeth through the skin, and a few of them up on top. Now he's got a mustache just like I do, and he's got a goatee kind of beard kind of thing like this. But you can see the teeth through the hair and through the skin. Now here's the question: what created those teeth on the shroud? Now some people think it's an anomaly of the photographs. I understand that, and that's worth looking at. But some have said, some medical doctors, in fact, they showed a picture of this to the at Duke Medical School. One of the researchers was a Duke Medical School professor, and he showed it to one of his buddies in the medical school. And this guy was a dentist. He was a professor of dental surgery, and the fellow said that this was the best dental photo he'd ever seen. And I can explain why it was really good. But he could see, he was sure it was teeth through the bottom lip.
I want to show the audience an image of, there's a photo negative version of this image, which I think actually shows what you're talking about a little bit better. So we're going to go ahead and show you that. If you're listening to this on the podcast, on the audio version, please join us. Go to the YouTube version. You'll see what Gary's talking about. There's actually a photo negative image. It's like a black and white image. It's actually a positive, believe it or not, of the shroud image, because we'll get to that in a second. But if I'm not mistaken, Gary, I think that the image on the shroud you see with your naked eye is actually a photo negative. And if you take a photo negative of the photo negative, you get a positive. Is that right?
Correct. There's a right left and light darkness reversal. So if there's a blood stain on the cheek, that's dark, i.e. red. I mean, you would think it shows up light on your photo. And if it's a light area, it shows up dark. And there's a famous a 3-shaped blood stain right here on the forehead, it's going to reverse on each photograph. You get a backwards 3 on one of the photographs and a forwards 3 on the other photograph. People can see the 3-shaped blood stain, and on the other one, it's backwards. That's that left-right light darkness reversal.
Okay. So if I would have paused just there for a moment, if I could, what significance does it have that what significance do we find that the image seems to be a photonegative and there's this reversal? What significance does that have? Is that an anomaly worth thinking about?
Yeah, it is, but it's not one of the hardest ones to explain.